It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. I'm Pete Francis alongside Willie Witten. Today, our special guest is Leela Baum from The Damn Truth. Leela, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
So you guys did something pretty exciting. You ventured into the live streaming world. You did a live stream concert. How did that go for you?
Well, it was definitely an experiment, and that's how we called it. It was a live stream experiment. We're a band that absolutely loves our live shows. We love our connection with our audience, and it was really hard, I think, to make that decision to actually play a live stream. I think we were kind of avoiding it for a very long time. We were doing little shows from home, from our living room, but to actually put together a whole live stream concert, we weren't really going to do that. But we also weren't really going to release a record during the pandemic either. So nothing was nothing was planned. Nothing was, we have to kind of throw away the rule book and reinvent what's going on. And then when we did release the album in May, it just felt so wrong not to play the songs live. We just had to do it for our own selves, for our own psyche. So that's why we put together the live stream. It was incredible. It was intense. We took the venue was this really old church that has been revamped into a recording studio / live space. And so it was really, really incredible. We got an amazing lighting guy to hop on board, a guy who's a fan as well. So he knows the songs kind of inside out. And he was really, really able to add some beautiful touches to the show. I had a blast. It was probably the hardest show I've ever done in my life, but I had a blast.
Yeah, I had seen your live stream on Joe Bonamassa's Keeping the Blues Alive stream-a-thon, and that performance really impressed me because you kind of watch some of these live streams and it can be hard to translate that same sort of energy. And I thought you guys did a really good job of bringing that energy, knowing that it is so difficult to kind of bring that same sort of energy as in, the live setting. Does that change your approach at all going into it?
Truthfully, I don't know. For me, it's always been playing. It's kind of, you play for your soul and you play for the one person in the crowd. We've played many a show where there were 5 people in the audience, and I still always made sure to play as if there were 10,000, because that's the only way I know how to do it, and I know it comes across. I've seen shows like that where people just don't care. They just do what they do. You can't. You're there anyway. You may as well have fun. You may as well give it your all and do everything you can to make it a memorable experience for yourself. And then hopefully it'll translate.
So Leela, this experiment, as you guys called it, I thought it was a great way to name it. It did have, at least to me, seeing some of these other live streams over the pandemic, it had a little bit of an experiment feel. You guys approached it with the format where before each show on the Now or Nowhere album that you went through, there was a little bit of a cameo with the 4 of you talking, giving a little insight about the song. You didn't go straight through, you included that. I thought it was really cool. How did you guys come up with that idea? Who proposed it? And what do you think, having seen the final product?
Well, I think it was when we were talking with IO, our production company. They're the film guys, and they were just like, we have to make this a little bit different. We have to, touch it. It's like you said, it's an experiment. Everything is turned on its head this year, and we've just got to think outside the box and do something real. And we were definitely excited and nervous, to be all together and to play these songs for the first time. And I think it just happened very organically that the guys set up a mic in that circular, kind of backstage vibe and said, why don't you just sit down here and let's chat a little bit just before getting on stage. So it was kind of planned, but half planned. We didn't think about it. We didn't really think what was going on and what we're going to say, or it just sort of happened. Oh, sorry, I'm getting coffee. Thank you. So it wasn't really planned, and yet it was. So it was kind of, we really didn't know what was going on, what we were going to say, and then suddenly they just threw out, "Why don't you guys just start talking about the songs?" And then it just rolled, and then it flew. It rolled off our tongues because there was a lot to say about the album, and there's a lot to say about each song that was written and the experience that we kind of go through just before playing the song too. So I think it got us excited, and it really brought the vibe home, because the minute we were done, and we spent 20 minutes in that little circle. It was like, really, there weren't takes of that. It was just whatever. We spent 20 minutes in that circle and we jumped on stage. So I think you can really feel the excitement that we were about to, bust out these songs for the first time, in succession. Yeah.
So I understand you guys have a pretty interesting story about how the band came together. Can you tell us how the band met?
Sure. It all started with me traveling through India. I was a hippie wanderer for about a good 2 years. And I met some people who were on their way to a festival in Israel, of all places. And they were just some really cool cats that I was hanging out with. And they were like, hey, why don't you come with? So she said, sure, why not? And then I find myself in this, in a beautiful gathering by a river, heat of Israel, naked, playing my guitar. And then this other naked, long-haired beauty sort of sits down next to me, and he doesn't say a word, because I was just playing Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I remember that song because it's one of my favorites. I was playing Almost Cut My Hair, and he sits down and takes out his guitar, which actually he had on his back. He was naked with his guitar on his back, so it was also a very memorable moment in my foggy brain. So he sits down and starts playing, and we didn't utter a word. And I just remember looking over at this guy's fingers, and I could not believe like the melodies that were coming out. And I had never heard anybody play like him before. It was just so amazing. We had a real cosmic connection at that moment, and we just played music for hours. Eventually we introduced ourselves and started chatting a little bit too, but it was mainly music, hours and hours, and discovering that we loved all the same things and that our inspirations were very similar. And we just knew, both of us knew, that we had to make music together.
Okay, so that's a pretty standard story. Most bands, I'd say, start by naked festivals in Israel. So that's all pretty standard. Yeah. But do you have any more interesting stories for how you coalesced around the other members of your band?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, right. That's the way we audition anybody new. They have to come in stark naked and show us their stuff.
Of course.
Very standard stuff.
Yes. Industry standard.
Sorry, what?
Oh, I just said industry standard. That's, I think it is. So.
Absolutely. He has to make the cut.
For your other guys, how did you fall across them? Was that is organic, or was that a little more of a search?
Tom and I ended up going back to Montreal, my hometown, where we decided, well, we're going to try to make music. We're writing in English. Let's go back to we're not going to, end up in Israel or in India or anywhere in the matter. Let's go back home and see if we can make some rock and roll in Montreal. And we started looking for like-minded individuals to play with. And I'm telling you, it was hard. At the time in Montreal, about 10 years ago, there was not much rock and roll, or at least we weren't finding it. There was like the kids our age were all into Arcade Fire and into the sort of more indie scene, lots of keyboards or lots of instrumentation. We were hanging out with lots of people playing like, French horns and cellos, and it was really awesome, but it wasn't the rock and roll that we were looking for. So it took a while. Eventually we met this guy who was actually he was a friend that Tom auditioned to be like a backup player for, and he ended up being, I don't know if you guys know Sam Roberts, really cool Canadian actor.
He's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. So his drummer was the guy who met Tom, and he said, well, I've got this other girl who's looking for a backup singer, a keyboardist, guitar player. So we kind of put us all together as a backing band for this sort of pop act, which, lasted for about 2-3 months. She was on a record deal. She had we jumped right into a big Much Music video production, $1 million worth production that, was kind of fun and exciting, but nothing ever happened with her. We did a few rehearsals, but that's how the first incarnation of the band started. Our drummer and bass player at the time, and me and Tom, were all hired to back up this girl. And then within 3-4 months, the project sort of disappeared, but we were all in the room together already. So we just kept jamming, and that was how the Damn Truth was born originally.
So
until
how
that
did you
bass player
come
left
up with
us.
the band name?
Yeah, it was Tom, because it was exactly from that mode of like looking for like-minded people and not finding it and not finding our scene. Not only did we have a hard time finding people to play with, we also had a hard time getting gigs and getting booked onto stuff, and like rock and roll was just not happening. So, there's that moment where you sort of think to yourself, so are we doing the right thing? Should we move, or should we change, or should we adapt? But we always had to go back to say that rock and roll is what keeps us ticking. It's what we love, and we have to make music that we want to listen to. Like that's the kind of music I want to make, and that's the truth, and that's the damn truth, and that's where it came from.
That's pretty great, Leela. From the little bit I hear from you guys, and once again from the experiment that went live a few days back, I got to look at the insides of your band, and the four of you seem to be pretty lively and interesting. So Pete and I sort of want to know, do you have any good stories from the road you want to share? Because something about your band told us that you guys might have a couple.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a few. I can tell you about the first time that we took PY on the road. So PY is our newest addition, which he joined the band just after we released Devilish Folk, our prior album. And so we just released the album, where everyone's ready to go, and our bass player leaves the band. He had enough. This was our prior bass player named David. And so we're looking for a bass player, we're looking for somebody to jump in and like go, because the tours were booked, everything was ready. We were playing, it was like the big Oceaga festivals of the summer here in Quebec. And we were just like, okay, we need a bass player. So we auditioned a few people, and then we were super lucky that this PY kid walks in. He's got short hair, this like teeny tiny skinny bloke, and he's wearing an AC/DC shirt, and he just, he came in knowing all the songs already, like prepared, and he was just great. His vibe was amazing. So we said, that's it, you're in. Next day, basically, like 24 hours later, we're on the road in the van. He's got everything he's owned with him in one little suitcase. His passport he's ready to go. And maybe 4 hours on to the road, we just gas up, and suddenly we smell smoke. And I'm like, what's going on? And just as I'm saying, guys, I smell smoke, stop the van. So some people are like pulling over and like, gesturing, get out, something's going on. We jump out of the van. The van is in flames, absolutely, completely engulfed. It was me and the band and me and Tom's kid, who is how much at the time? He was two and a half at the time, and his babysitter. And we're jumping out of the van, and we're looking at our van burning, and we are so lucky that a hockey coach was right behind us. He jumps out of his van and all gung-ho goes, "Do you want to save your stuff? You want to save your gear?" And he starts like, revving up everybody to like lift the trailer that was attached to the van, disconnect it. So that's where all the gear was. So we didn't lose any of the gear, but the van, of course, went up in flames. But we were managed to take it apart. And this was the moment. So this was like birth by fire of PY joining the Damn Truth, where he lost everything he owned, which is what I was saying there he lost his worldly possessions, his passports, every bit of clothing he owned, everything that he brought with him was gone. And he was reborn into this band.
Wow.
Yeah.
Heavy introduction for a young kid. Well, I mean, at least it lets him know what he's getting into. I think that's fair.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, when we were stranded in that hotel room, without wheels and just a trailer to our name, and crying, and that if that doesn't keep you guys together, it'll definitely tear you apart. So we did the opposite. We really got close to each other, and we're a family. We really are. Yeah.
I know you guys are heading to the UK. You're going to be doing a tour over there. Have you guys ever played in the UK before?
We had one night in London, because we did our European tour, and it was awesome. It was the first time we'd been over there. That was two and a half, maybe 3 years ago. I don't know. Time is muddled right now. But I think it was about 3 years ago. We were in Europe, having a blast. And we were like, but we got to get to London. Like, how can you not play London? We're so close. And the agency that we were with at the time were like, don't go to London. You're going to lose your shirt. There's no reason. You're going to pay so much money in taxes and in trying to cross that border. We're like, we can't, we've got to. So we booked our own gig, like down in downtown London at the O2, which is quite a good venue, and it ended up being one of the best nights of our tour. People had come, fans that we've made since our the Yves Saint Laurent campaign that we were on a few years back. We made a lot of fans throughout Europe and throughout like Ireland and Scotland, and people flew into this one night in London. I had friends from Sweden that flew in, people that came in from other gigs that had seen us in Amsterdam, and they wanted to see us in London as well. So it ended up being a sold out night. It was absolutely off the wall. And it was one night we spent 24 hours in the UK, and ever since we're just dying to go back because it wasn't enough.
So that's the UK. Now or Nowhere is picking up a decent amount of traction. Do you guys have plans to make it back over the pond stateside so we can hear you?
Oh, we can't wait, man. We cannot wait. May these borders be open already so we can, get the van going. I mean, it just doesn't make sense for us to get on a plane with all this gear. It's way too expensive. So we need the van. we need it with us. We need the border open.
When you say the van, you're not talking about the one that went up in flames. I'm assuming you guys have since got a new. Okay.
Yes,
well,
yes.
With the intro story in Israel and the Naked Hippie Fest, I don't know what to expect from you guys. Anything other than the damn truth. I think you guys live up to your name.
You got it, man. Yeah.
So where can people find the new album before we let you go?
Thedamntruth.com is the easiest place, and everywhere. Hopefully you can even go to your local record store, and if they don't have it, they can get it.
Awesome, Leela. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you guys talking to me again.